everyone, it's Ray with Tarot Living. Today we're going to do the reading with my new deck. It's called the Dreaming Way Tarot. So there it is. And I've seen this one, a few reviews on it, and I will do a full review, but today we're going to just do our weekly reading. So this would be from, well, it's Labor Day weekend, so I'm actually doing this on the Monday, so September 7th to the 13th. So that's our first card. And that is our second card. All right, so the cards we got were a Knight of Swords and Page of Swords. Wow, okay, that's quite amazing. So I'm actually going to show you these cards a little bit more up close. So that's the Knight of Swords. And in this deck, I noticed that, I'm just getting to know it, but I've noticed that the deck is kind of has a color theme. So the swords are very white and they're quite snowy. So quite an interesting, rendition or version of the swords for sure. They look quite, icy and snowy. Right, I had to straighten them because it was driving me crazy. Anyway, okay, so we've pulled the Knight of Swords and the Page of Swords, and I think this is extremely interesting, I have to say, for a couple of different reasons. So first reason is it's kind of back to school time. So swords relate to, of course, their air element, and swords really relate to anything that's about communication, learning, reading, writing, information management. It's about logic, reason, using your mind, basically using your mind for activities. And especially if we see the Knight sitting here first, we know that there's some type of activities that are certainly going to be happening. Because the Knight can represent not only a person potentially, which we'll go into in a minute, but it can represent action or activity or some kind of change, movement, something along those lines. Pardon me, something along those lines. So it just reminds me that, if we're looking at an activity or action, then we know that our mind and our learning and our information, management and processing is going to be very active this week. And what I find very striking is that we've pulled the Page of Swords as well. And the Page of Swords really usually represents somebody who is, learning something, who is in the very early phases of learning an activity, and certainly could represent a student. So it's almost like these would be the perfect cards for back to school week. So it's very fascinating. I really think that we've got that energy around us this week where if we don't have children in the household or young people in the household who are going back to school, then maybe we ourselves are looking at learning something new or getting involved in activity of the mind or studying something or thinking about that sort of thing. And the other thing is whenever we pull court cards, and particularly when we've pulled two court cards, which is really a theme here in this reading, it's a pattern in this reading. When we pull court cards, it means that we've potentially got quite a few people or some people around us. Knights will usually represent someone who is very active, very energetic, very outgoing, assertive, potentially even aggressive. Knight of Swords can be somebody who really has a lot to say and says it very strongly and very potentially quite aggressively. And Page of Swords is known to be, somebody who has capability in terms of learning and information, communication, all of that kind of thing, but they don't have experience yet. So they can almost speak out of turn or say things that are not fully appropriate or, not say it in a very refined way because they don't have the experience to have done that. So if you add the Knight and the Page here, we're looking at quite an immature form of the sword energy. So the results of that can be, very much some kind of information or communication that isn't coming across very, gently. It could be, sometimes they represent, the Page sometimes can represent people or rumors or information that's going on behind the scenes that we're not aware of. So that sort of thing can happen. So just overall, though, we're looking at a lot of activity, information, and potentially people around us who are really engaged in learning or communication in some way. So it's not only, great cards for back to school, whether it be for our children that are going back to school or if it's ourselves, but also watch the communication. Do you have someone around you who is quite, assertive in their communication and it's not maybe coming across, great? We also have to look at whether these cards are representing ourselves and if there's a part of us that needs to maybe refine our communication a little bit. But it can be great in terms of if you have to use your mind to get something done, this would be the week to get it done. I mean, this is, if you've got, some kind of information management or some kind of administrative tasks or, anything that you need to learn, study, memorize, that sort of thing, it would be a great week to do it because these two cards together, they would be quite a powerhouse, but not necessarily the most mature form of them. So, so very interesting. Leave a little note below if you've got any ideas about how that, is manifesting for you this week. I think these are really fascinating cards. So have a wonderful week, everyone. Take care, and we'll talk to you next week.